seagulls follow trawler. It's because they think sardines will be thrown into the sea. Thank you very much.
Talking nonsense. So I thought, no, enough's enough. Why should I put up with that? Talking nonsense. So I thought, no, enough's enough. Why should I put up with that? Don't back down, double down. Don't back down, double down.
Yes, it's been a while since I've done one of these. It's just Boycie boy on his own tonight. It's just me and my own. Remember they used to all join me for the Sunday sesh? Remember those good old days? Me too. Now it's just me and my own. They do the Sunday Blether far too early for me. So, yes, it's a bit of an old school show. We will do it for 25 minutes, half an hour, something like that. And I'll be taking your comments. We'll have a wee bit of banter. I'll be getting, I said that like Stuart Cosgrove from fucking Radio Scotland. But we'll be taking in the comments. We're having a wee bit of chat around them. And just a wee catch up with everyone. What's been happening? Has everyone had a good weekend? I certainly have. It's been very funny watching. I think we did the bus stop on Friday. Good reaction to that. That was quite fun. For the haircuts and scent, we'll be speaking of Barber confessions a wee bit later. David's joining me at 6:30 because another new concept for the channel, which I appreciate. You've only all got so many hours in the day, but we are trying to provide as many different sort of shows as we can. You can catch up with them at your leisure sometimes. Sometimes the live ones will really have an expiry date of 24 hours because we're on to the next sort of live one, but that's all good. That's all good. I hope everyone's well. Just watching Canada and Croatia. It was like a revolving door of right backs. Was that one in, one out? Don't back down, double down, all that patter. Bob McBob, that is a straight fringe. It is, mate. It is. This is me like trying to be cool, man. Trying to be down with the kids, man. Probably struggling with it. Good to see so many of you in though. 34 live already. Panicking, man, doing this morning. Panicking. I don't know how some of them do it. But like I was saying, we will be taking your comments in, and I'm more than happy to discuss them. If you've not cracked open a beer yet, then make sure you do. I'd love to say this is just Fanta Fruit Twist, but it's got a few vodkas in it. I'm not gonna lie. I would say one, but do you know what I mean? Like my one vodka is probably a few to most people. A lot of people talk about Juranovic. Stubbsy sauce comes in. Is it enough to impress others that he got an assist? I thought it was a good assist today against Canada. I thought Aaron Moy played well. Was it yesterday, the day before, against Tunisia? I thought both of them have done extremely well in both of those games. I thought Johnston looked okay as well, to be fair. So you know, it'll be interesting to see if Juranovic is still a Celtic player. But we'll start with I hope I'm pronouncing this right. Belly, not like. In fact, I don't even have a belly. I don't know. I was going to say like not like my belly. I don't have a belly. But Belly comes in. Johnston coming to us. What if Juranovic stays? Then what do we do? I think that's the hot talking point. Before we get into that, though, we do need to do all that good stuff. And all that good stuff means do hit the subscribe button if you've not already. I think we're up to 3,055, something like that. Well, I say something like that as if, all part of the plan. Wasn't part of the plan? That's way more than I expected. So thank you. And then, if you hit the like button, it gets us more traction on the YouTube. The bus gets busier. If keep the comments alive, because we need you tonight, because it's just me. So the comments need to be alive. And if you want to share it, amazing. And of course, likes of Gary Brown, Scott Howe. Yeah, they've all became Boycie bus members, as many others have as well, which of course is totally optional. As you can see in the top right as well, we're right now supporting the Brain Tumour charity this week. I'm hosting an event in Dunfermline at the Old Inn. Gregor kindly asked me to do that for him. The least I could do, because it's a shave your head night. There is a wee link in the bio. If you can donate anything, that'd be amazing. Again, there's no pressure for me to do that. I know the cost of living and all that shit. So I'm not wanting to like overly push it, but at the same time, it's for an amazing cause. We're going to get Gregor on either tonight or tomorrow. I'm going to get a wee catch up with him. He's a Celtic fan too, so we'll talk a wee bit about Celtic, and then I want him to tell us about the cause. And then over the course of this week, hopefully it'll resonate enough, and a few of us are able to make some sort of donation to the charity. I'll be hosting it that night, but as I say, I mean, as it is a shave your head event, the best I could do was offer my vocal services, because I ain't shaving my head. Scott, I was just back to the shop with beers and wine. Because, lads, mate, I'm good. Cheers to you, mate. Charles Smith, he's having a few cold ones as well. I like it. But we will go back to the first comment, because Johnston, it does look like he is joining us. I'm all for that. Again, it looks like it's not took the World Cup for Ange to identify this player, which again, I think leaves a lot of the. I'll give you my take on it. I think you can almost hear it at the English commentary today. I don't know if you were just watching the game. It was literally about 10 minutes ago. And he says, by Canada's performances so far, you might see a few of these players playing in England. And it's like someone's nudged him, and he goes, and maybe Scotland as well. And maybe Scotland as well, because certainly in the case of Johnston, and it's like, I think they can't believe that it, or they don't process it that our manager right now he has definitely got his eyes or his net casted in every corner of the globe, and it's before Johnston impresses at a World Cup, we have him teed up and ready to join Celtic. There was a good discussion on the Sunday Blether. I think there's a bit of confusion. I'm happy to debate that as well, because we're going to be talking about players' value. Now, my take on players' value, guys, is beauty lies in the eye of the beholder. So it's not about what is a player worth. It's about what it's worth to the person who's going to be paying that money, first and foremost. And secondary to that, what a manager then, whether they agree that that's fair. I mean, I'm sure if a manager was to give you a list of players, if you were a football owner, I think most owners would be going, right, you're going to bankrupt us here. We can't have them all. So, but I do think secondary, I think an owner would still probably bow to the football knowledge of a manager at the same time and go, look, they want, let's say in the case of Johnston, for example, they want 5 million for him. Is he worth that? And I think today on the Sunday Blether they were talking about, I think they've been at start, and I certainly said this on the bus stop show on Friday. I thought we were getting him for like under 1 million. And then last night I was re-listening to Clyde, because they had a Canadian journalist on. I was quite intrigued to hear what his take. To be honest, it was the usual sort of fluff that you get. I can't wait till they wheel out Dan Orlovich for the Kobayashi nonsense, you know what I mean? Because he just gets wheeled out for anything with the J League, even though that guy does not have a the first clue, let alone any clue on matters, football. I don't know how he masquerades as a journalist, but yeah, credit to him. He gets paid a hell of a lot more than me to talk shite about football. But with all that in mind, we are going to be looking at a player, Johnston, who this Canadian journalist seems to think will go for what he described as the market value. Now, Bailey, to go back to your point, because I don't want to, this is I've started already. I'm away on another wee path already. But I think if we're going to be shelling out the sort of 5 million that this guy's suggesting, I think it was 6 million euros, he said. Again, interesting when you're buying from Canada. But I suppose it's the Rangers model now. You just call everything in euros because it makes it sound more. I think if we're buying a right back at 5 million, Bailey, for me, I'm convinced that means that a right back has to be leaving. But my guess would be it won't be Ralston. I think Juranovic must be for the off. I don't see any way, shape, or form Celtic going to the next half, the second half, I should say, this season with 3 right backs. All, by the way, viable options. My love for Ralston, I suppose, has diluted my admiration for Juranovic. I think at times Juranovic is flattered to deceive, and I think has not all his fault. I think he's smirk after his own goal didn't help his cause from my perspective. I'm not speaking for anyone else, only speaking for myself. But I do think the flip side is as well, he's not done anything overly badly in a Celtic jersey. I just think he wears, and not through his own fault, this cloak of Croatian international, which seems to elevate his, everything he does to a different level. Celtic need to cash in on that at some point. I would imagine after a World Cup with plenty of years left, that would be the time that Celtic would do that. And again, Belly, I don't see us having Johnston, JJ, and Ralston. I think that would be a puzzle. Even Ange would go, I don't need that in my life. I don't think, despite the fact Andrew's undeniably barely got a massive say in matters transfers at Celtic, which is very refreshing. And I can touch on that if you want as well. I think the ideology that Celtic had, good word, the ideology Celtic had in the summer was for us to be, or not the summer just there, the summer before, was for us to be running with head coach, a proper football manager, and a director of football. Ange kind of had to take on all those responsibilities, such was the rushed nature of his appointment. And I think that's led to he gets a bigger say than most managers would. I don't see him, though, despite all that, having the ability to have the Celtic board parting with upwards of £5 million if these figures are true, for a right back to come and compete with another 2 right backs already there doing a good job. So yes, I mean 3 good right backs would be difficult. Egyptian King says Juranovic never stays at clubs for more than a year. Plus, at his age, he will want a big money move. Well, I don't know what his career trajectory was before Legia Warsaw, Egyptian. I know that he was there for only 1 year, and he's maybe seen Celtic as that. For me, he was someone that I wonder if Ange just picked his moment to sell him. I'll go back to an interesting thing with Juranovic, and again, it's not a hate parade or anything like that. I mean, people get carried away when you say someone's a decent player, not world class. They think you must hate him. It's far from it. When you say Aaron Moyes underwhelming at 32 on a free transfer, people think that means you've said he's shite. I still think he is an underwhelming signing. But anyway, Juranovic, in his case, he was 1 year at Legia Warsaw. Then he probably did maybe bat his eyelids in the summer. Those stories came from somewhere, and twice they cropped up, Egyptian King. However, what also I think we've got is a manager going, just park it now. Not to the player, but to the board. Wait till he plays the World Cup. Croatia might get out of the group. Once he's played, and he's the starter for them, we might get maximum value for him then. And by the way, I've already got my replacement lined up. He's going to cost you less than half of what we sell him for. So maybe that is the way. And by the way, I think Kevin 14's spot on here. If we turn a nice profit on Juranovic, he goes to the best wishes. It's our new way. I couldn't agree more with that, mate. if we knew when we signed Juranovic for £2.6 million, and you'd have told me within 18 months he'll go for, but let's say £10 million, I don't think it's going to be the crazy fees some people are talking about. I really don't. If it is, kudos to Celtic. My hunch is it'll be around the 10 million mark. Not because as you all you guys know, I don't say anything with inside scoop, man. You know, oh, my sources tell me. You know, I'm not one of those kid on people. But on my useless opinion, I would say we'll get about 10 million for him. That's 4 times near enough what we paid for him. You know, take his wages out, you've made one hell of a profit, you know. So if we're then to make 7 million profit and invest, say, is this 5 million that's getting bandied about for Johnston, that would tell me Celtic are being quite ambitious. They're going, look, that's the profit. We're giving you over 50% of that to get his replacement. That's the progression that we always talk about, this Ajax model. I think that's us entering into that territory, albeit on a smaller scale right now. But if that's the building blocks I'm just talking about, I think that Spare Belly comes back in and says, thinks 12 million. I wouldn't nitpick. I wouldn't nitpick about that. I you know, as I say, I think around the £10 million mark. If you think 12, Scott Howe thinks 15. I think if we get 15 from, I think, you know, we'd be doing very, very well. But yeah, it was interesting to watch them both on the park tonight. I thought Johnston looked. I thought he looked okay. I thought he looked okay. I didn't think. I didn't think he was. I think he was unbelievable. But I think it's a struggle when you're playing. We've seen, you know, Scotland players struggle against that Croatia team. The only team they beat at Euro 2020, albeit Euro 2021, was Scotland, and we thought they looked outstanding. But that was actually the only game they won that tournament. And today I thought Canada, they started with a bang, they faded, and then the second half I thought they came back into it till the third goal. So yeah, to do even a decent performance against Croatia, yeah, I think the fact we've identified him before that is pretty interesting, and I'm all for it. He does seems to be the topic of conversation right now, albeit, you know, both right backs playing today at a World Cup's pretty cool. But I think the compelling aspect of it is the fact that he's been identified prior to the World Cup, and it looks like it was sewn up, this deal. The way, I mean, let's look at it this way. Johnston, I don't know if you've seen his press conference where he, you know, the wee clip where he speaks about Celtic for a minute. If you're doing that while still that deal's not done, you know, I would be surprised, put it that way. I would be surprised. Speaking of Canadians, Ian Barron, the Darlington fan, comes in and he says, who remembers Jason DeVos back in the day? Wow. And for those of you who remember my date of birth game I used to play at the birth of this channel, 1974. Just like that. That's the year he was born. But he was a decent player. Danielle comes. I've not seen Danielle's name in ages. How are you? She thinks Canada, like the USA, next World Cup will be serious contenders. A lot of young players in Europe doing very well. It'll all be about, in my opinion, with Canada, if they can hold on to that manager. I think he's very much got that and sort of aspect to him, that he plays one way. And yes, I think your first foray into a tournament like this year, they've came a cropper eventually, but they'll be back, absolutely. If they can, but again, the manager might not be there in 4 years for the next World Cup. That would be my concern, because I don't think every manager thinks the same as these one-offs. And I think right now they've got someone there who's their one-off like sort of manager. And I wonder if, based on performances, not results, as we all know, seems to carry a hell of a lot of weight these days. I wonder if he'll still be there in 4 years. He may well not be. Right, what else do we want to talk about? Because it already looks like during this winter shutdown, albeit it's a bit boring without Celtic. I suppose for Bob it's a wee bit boring without Rangers as well. But they've been in the news a lot. They've got they seem to be getting closer, and then they seem to be getting further back for Michael Beale. I wonder if Bob's got any inside knowledge there from the Rangers fans forums. I'm not one of those people who spend my lives on that. It's not really my style whatsoever. But I do think that whilst they're in this, the longer they're in, the state of unknown. Now, they took a week to get rid of Gio, even though there was no football. I'm guessing that's negotiating payoffs. I'm sure I bow to Bob's knowledge on this. He'll know more than me. But they really need, when the players are back to training on Monday, some sort of stability, which is exactly what Uzi's at Celtic right now. Everything's stable. Everything's in place. Us right now, all 57 of you, we're talking right now about a second January signing in Johnston, who's playing at a World Cup. That's going to be our second signing of the January window because Kobayashi is already confirmed. Like, right now, they're not sure who their next manager is going to be. Kevin wants to know how much would Beale be costing to release. The rumour was £1.5 million. Again, though, when you combine that with, I think it was rumoured $3 million plus to get rid of Gio and his coaching team, it's a bit of an outlay for a team that didn't spend one dink after qualifying for the Champions League. David Lowe thinks that Dykes might come in as a replacement for Morelos. I mean, I think Dykes would cost too much, David, but I certainly wouldn't want him to go there. I think he would do all right. Danielle, read Gio's statement he put out on Instagram. He was telling everyone there is problems and crises behind the scenes. It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. Everything seems to be a wee bit weird. Bob says the hold-up is they're wanting Wallace. The board aren't keen on Wallace. Like, to do what? Like, he's retired, right? So, what, as a coach? Fucking hell. I mean, I associate him with banter years, Bob. I don't blame the board if they're a wee bit reluctant on that one. There was another comment coming in there about the Sydney Cup, a wee bit closer to home. The Ange homecoming, as Stubbsy Sauce calls it. I like that. I see, Stubbsy, this interaction that's going on. This is better than the Thursday night forum, big boy. But how much did we really get for the Ange homecoming? Does anyone know? No, I don't know. I think the rumours are that it was definitely around the £6 million mark. I think what will be very interesting is we'll find out. I think for our rivals to depart that tournament, I think cost them a pretty penny. Now, that only costs a pretty penny if there was money there to be made in the first place, if there's been a huge investment at the beginning from sponsors, TV revenue, etc. So, I just put my hand in my pocket there. I've not worn this jacket in ages. Just found a dog biscuit. I don't normally eat dog biscuits, but the fuck is that doing in there? Anyway, I didn't want the dog in this jacket. I must have been eating dog biscuits one night. Better than disco biscuits, I suppose. Oi, Bhoycie says DJ Gaz. He's loving it there on the bus, mate. Good to have you on, mate. Love it. Was it 6 million, says Danielle? I think it was. Here's the interesting one we'll put to you, because one thing we need to be very aware of is when Postecoglou got the job, how much fear was there from Rangers supporters? None. If Michael Beale gets the job, how much fear is there from Celtic fans? I'm quite intrigued to know that. I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. There's two ways. I'll give you the two examples, right? This is how we work as football fans. So in the one corner, you've got Michael Beale, the mastermind behind stopping the 10, the guy who was the brains behind the operation. And I kind of get that. Then you've got the green corner, right? And the green corner say, brains behind what operation? He won 1 trophy out of 9. He then left Aston Villa when they were doing shite. So when you think about it, there is two sides to it. The Rangers fans will dress up as they won the most important trophy out of them all. Celtic fans will tell you, well, you won it in exceptional circumstances. Up to that point, what really had Michael Beale done if he was the brains behind it? I don't know. I think if any prospective manager coming up against a Celtic side who've got 2 players lined up for the January window, signed, sealed, delivered, You're joining a club that potentially isn't in the strongest financial position, despite their recent achievements, that are currently 9 points behind, that it looks like have future branding issues with Hummel, 9.5 million that I read in the paper. Not the actual paper, like online paper. It's not that attractive a job unless you're going to get backed. And that then takes you into a very interesting conversation, because to be fair to Michael Bailey, did turn down Wolves, who you would expect would pay him more and give him a bit of a war chest there, because all the clubs in England these days, even mediocre bullshit like fucking Wolves, would give him money. So to go to Rangers, I mean, when you're 9 points behind, lesser a wage, and very little sort of transfer budget, or maybe there will be one, who knows? But I think the one thing I would always be cautious of is, and I think I said this on the Thursday night forum, there's 38 league games in a season, right? There's only been 15 played so far, guys and girls, right? That would mean 23 games or league games you will be in charge of, whoever the next manager is of the other lot. If you finish second, I think that then sticks in your CV, because you were in charge of the majority of games. You didn't pick it up, after Christmas or after January window and just like sort of steadied the ship. You were in charge for most of those games. You had 3 out of 4 against Celtic and you still didn't win the league. There's a lot of risk. What's the word? Jeopardy is a good word. There's a lot of jeopardy in taking this job. A lot of jeopardy in taking this job. And I wonder if the reason maybe they've pinned their hopes on one, and it doesn't seem like Sean Dyche was interested, etc. But I just wonder with that one, like, when you think about your own career, and people want to kid on, Ange isn't just out for himself. Ange is out for Celtic to an extent, but is acutely aware as well of his career credentials. And I think he saw Celtic in a position where that looks like they're a sunken ship, but they've got the tools still and the foundations there still to, rise pretty quickly back. I suppose you would need those sort of assurances if you were a manager, particularly concerned about your CV, because at this moment in time, I don't see how a Rangers manager, even if it's Pep Guardiola, wins that league, because you're relying on favours, because beating Celtic 3 times might be one thing. We've got, plus 17 goal difference? Someone keep me right in the comments. It's difficult when I do this on my own. So I'll just crack out facts that don't actually make any sense. Well, facts, we should say. But that team as well seems, it seems like they've kind of chucked it. So you really need to inspire them. Maybe they're going back to Michael Beale for that. But then the real truth will be with the likes of Kent, Morelos. Will they still check out in the summer for nothing? Remember, we all know the fees that they've been linked with going for. But yeah, I mean, I think it seems a very one-sided affair. If you were trying to, and this is trying me to say this without Celtic bias, but if you were looking at it from afar, you were one of these managers linked with Rangers, you were their agent. Say I was Agent Boyce. But you would generally be saying to your client, you'd be going, I don't know, mate. That's 9 points behind. The team look to have chucked it. They're aging. There's guys out of contract that have checked out already. There can't be that much money there because they qualified for the Champions League and didn't spend another dink in the next 7 days of the window. That to me seems like an uphill struggle. But yet you'll be the guy labelled with it because you were in charge of the majority of those SPFL matches that season, 23-15. I think that way, that'd be the conversations I'd be having if it was, a manager under sort of my watch. Not that I'll ever be a manager agent at any time ever, but you know what I mean. I think that'd be something that would be a concern. They would need to, and I suppose the thing is with Scottish football as well, the fans would really need to show a patience that they don't always show, and that goes for both sides, by the way. I think they would need to be very patient and accept and not change their narrative come the end of the season if they don't win. When they don't win the league, many will say on here. I don't know. I mean, Bob says, come on, Boycie, they like something about 30-year gap. I'm not talking about 30 gap, I'm talking about this season, though, Bob. I think this is the point. I'm trying to talk current affairs, mate. Like, and I think mud sticks eventually, you know? Mud sticks. If you don't win that league and you finish second and, you know, you've been in charge 23 out of 38 games, suddenly going into the fresh season after a summer window where you're thinking it's all going to be brand new, your reputation's already a wee bit tainted by that. That would be my concerns. Kevin 14, let's talk about Sunday. I like this. How much should Celtic spend on a clinical striker for the next Champions League? Let's talk about that. Let me have a drink before that because I need to get the brain going here, Kevin. My throat's drying up as it is. Well, like I was saying earlier, Kevin, when it comes to transfer values, beauty is very much in the you know, what's the fucking saying? In the eye of the beholder. So I was watching, as I'm sure many of you were there, Canada against Croatia. Okay. The Croatian national team, believe it or not, actually has a lot more domestically based players than I expected, which I suppose makes a lot more sense for why Juranovic was already in the squads whilst playing in Poland, for example. That's not always been that common. I think Croatia's golden generation, you would have to have been performing in the top sort of 5 to 8 leagues in Europe to be getting a mention. Now it's changed slightly. However, with regards to how much Celtic should spend, it should very much be on what Ange sees as the value. I have constantly pushed on here that I think values for players, Kevin, we play down in Scotland massively. I remember reading a Chris Sutton article, and I love Big Sutton, as you know. You could say anything, I like him. But the biggest outrage he ever had, or one of them, was about the striker from Ross County, same surname as me, Liam Boyce, and he was sold for 500,000, even though he'd outscored Moussa Dembele in the SPFL that year. So what I'm trying to say is, I think even in Scottish football, we get giddy about fees that really in the modern world, look what they're all spending. So I think if Celtic spent 10 million, I think there'd be panic attacks everywhere if he didn't score in his first 3 games. And give him we've done it again. And there'd be this crazy panic that's really not necessary. But going back to my Croatia reference there, they said a player that they brought on had scored over 30 goals already in the Croatian domestic league. Now, I wonder, with players like that, how much would you have to spend to get a top player from a Dinamo Zagreb? I don't think they shop in the same supermarket even Celtic do. So I think then you could be looking at, is that the model? You know, could you be still, you know, pluck players from slightly lesser leagues, but are still going to be pushing our record transfer fee? But no, I still think that's a diminished record transfer fee for where Celtic are at this moment in time. As a club that has turned over very close to 100 million numerous times, I think our record fee being 9 million is a bit shambolic, if I'm honest. But that is, I think if there's a player in Croatia who scored 30 goals domestic level in Croatia and he's of a good age, and we were to spend between 7 to 12 million pounds on him, I think that would be the sort of market I'd be very comfortable Celtic shopping in, Kevin. If there's a player cheaper than that, they think can do a better job, I would, again, I've said this a couple of times today, I will bow to Angie's knowledge before my own. But yeah, I don't think, you know, Stubbsy says, I don't think Ange will break the 10 million this year or next. He likes a bargain. He has an eye for it. I don't think he likes bargains. I think he pays the true market value for a player that's coming from environments that don't tend to trade at that sort of level. I don't think, I totally disagree that he wouldn't spend 10 million on a player. I think if he was bringing in what he thought was a player with the pedigree that's worth 10 million pounds, I don't think Ange would have any issue whatsoever, Stubbsy. I disagree on that one. I think what he pays is what he knows you can get from the markets he's plucking the players from. I'm not convinced that he would be putting any sort of ceiling on what that valuation is. I think he does it player by player. And I also think as well, managers don't always enter any realm with magic wands. I think for the success rate Ange's had, I also think it's very unrealistic to expect them to keep, going down that well and continually plucking £1 to £2 million players of the ability that we have so far. And I think that would be where I go in that. I think if Ange has been told he can only sign players of a market value of £1 to £3 million, I think that would make his job very tricky. I think at this moment in time, though, he has been acutely aware of markets that haven't been explored by the big nations nor our rivals, for example. And I think that's why he's going, well, I've got an untapped knowledge here, so I know they'll be good enough. But once that goes mainstream, and by the way, I think that will happen because obviously the success of Tati is going to eventually leave Celtic 15 upwards, right? 15 million upwards. Easy days, in my opinion. Easy days. I think once you start seeing examples of that, the other big clubs get their horns on and they start being vultures. And, that's what happens. Not that vultures have horns. See, I'm waffling now. But the point of the matter is, I think if Postecoglou, I think he's got more than enough credit in the bank. If he thinks the best striker we could get to take us to Champions League level, as the original question was, Stubbsy, I think he's got plenty sway now to say we will spend 10 million on him and watch what we then do. But we can't define all good players by their value. But I also agree with my take on it that obviously I agree with my take, but I also think that, if you continually expect a manager to compete at Champions League level and you continually expect them to find players between £1 to £2.5 million that can go in and compete and then be sold for 15 to 20 million, I think it gets to magic one stage. I think every manager in the world wants to see evolution and go, well, I did that then, but what about the next bracket up? What about £3 to £5 million players? What if I told you I've got a list of them that I know? And then it would carry on. So it doesn't really, I think if Celtic want a £10 million strike, if Ange wants a £10 million striker, Celtic have to back that. And if they don't, then for me, they're having their cake and eat it. And that's a bad move with a single-minded manager on a 12-month rolling contract. However, we're going to bring in David now because we've got another exciting bit of content to bring you. It's going to be called the Barber Confessions. Now, some of you might know David Logue is his trade. He's got an amazing shop in Leslie. This is where I got trimmed the other day, and we are going to be sporadic episodes, by the way, on the channel, having David basically, whether it be a shot back the sides, whether it be a mod cut, it won't be me, but whether it be a hot shave, we're going to be uploading episodes talking about Celtic fans telling you their love of Celtic, how they got there, and hopefully we'll get a few contributors from the bus to do the same thing. David Logue.
Hello. Hello.
How are you?
How's everybody? I'm fine. I'm great. I feel I was just on, and here I am again.
Good job.
Are we changing clothing as well? We change your clothes there. We change the scenery. Thought I would mix it up since I'm on twice today.
Well, Monty's wanting some extensions, David. So can you do that for one of the shows?
We'll work that out for you, Monty. Not a problem, big man.
But the Sunday Blether took a new turn today as well.
It did.
And it was brilliant you hosting it, mate. And it's going to be more sort of paper talk driven, a bit of inspiration from the Sunday supplement. But there was 4 of you on today, which is tricky to host. I make it look natural,
You make it look easy, mate.
Jokes, mate. That is a joke. I just got for banter, just to wind up folk. You know what I mean? Folk get triggered if you say anything like that. But David, Sunday Blether today was a real success. But I've been watching before I came on live the Dropbox that you've sent me of the first Barber Confessions episode, which with the Celtic twist. It is class, mate. I think folk are going to love this content, and it gives us another wee dimension, And we're going to be trying to encourage, obviously, Boycie Bus contributors on. But I'm sure if a viewer was in that area of a Celtic mind, David, you would love to spend that time with them and do the same.
Yeah, that's the. So basically, the Barber Chair Confessions podcast I did a couple of years ago was just kind of
Yes.
a little idea I had in my head where I wanted to just have a client in the chair. And usually when you have a client in the chair, there's always somebody that has a really interesting story, some mental thing they've done on the weekend that's led them down some crazy path, or, you know, just life experiences. And I always thought to myself, these conversations would be brilliant, like for a podcast. I'm listening to this guy's story and it's hilarious or it's crazy. And I'm like, this is just a random normal guy. This is no celebrity that's on some podcast that's got, you know, that's lived some amazing life that we'll just never experience. It's just everyday guys in the barber chair talking about some crazy experience they've been on. So that was the original idea of the pod, as just an audio. I was never too sure on how it would work in terms of being actually in the barbershop setting. So we never done it actually in a barbershop. But just a couple of weeks ago, we had a quiet Monday in the shop, and one of my barbers, Jamie, he's quite an interesting guy. We thought, why don't we just, he had his podcast mic in his bags. We thought, let's just see what it's like, and obviously I'll cut your hair, and hopefully it's not too horrendous to listen to with all the noises. Let you couple of guys watch what we had done, and it had nothing Celtic related to it whatsoever, because Jamie isn't really particularly bothered about football. But the feedback was positive. So I like the idea of maybe bringing it to the Boycie bus and kind of make it more Celtic related, whether it's like you said, a contributor from the show, or just one of the passengers that would be quite happy to come through to the shop, sit in the chair. You'll get a trim or whatever, and we'll just talk some Celtic, talk a wee bit about you, your life, any interesting funny stories that might not even have anything to do with Celtic, and just talk about how you got into becoming a Celtic fan, or your first experience at Celtic Park, or just any funny stories from your experiences of supporting Celtic. So we did it yesterday. My dad was up this weekend visiting, and we thought it would be a perfect opportunity to try a more Celtic related pod. So my dad,
it was class.
Obviously no hair on his head whatsoever, but we done it while I was giving him a hot towel shave on his head. So that was an interesting one to do, trying to have a conversation with him while having an open razor at his head. But we thought the conversation worked out well. We talk about my dad's love of Celtic, how he became a Celtic fan. He's got some funny bus driver stories, because he's a bus driver. And we just kind of go back and forward. It's about a 20-minute episode. They're not going to be very long episodes. That's about as long as they'll be. And they'll be sporadic. I don't plan on doing loads. It's difficult finding time to do it. And I understand if, like a Mark Kearney wants to come on, he's coming a lot further away than any of my local clients would be. I'm hoping to even get some of my local clients that are Celtic fans to jump on, whether they'll be up for it or not, and just see how they go. Obviously, they're not going to be live. There will be a wee bit about editing there, here and there, just to kind of
they're cool
cut
though,
them
mate.
down.
They're very good though, David. They're good. Like, honestly, I watched obviously the first one that you did, which was non-Celtic related, and I think that was you pitching the idea, going, "Look, guys, what do you think? Do you think this would work?" It was us talking about, I think it was drama and stuff like that, and I remember going, "That concept's class. That really works." And you're like, "Well, here's the plan, boys. I'll do this, and we could get it on the bus." And I was like, "All right." And then, as fate would have it, I've got a haircut booked with you yesterday, and you're like, "Well, my dad's going to be up." And I hadn't met Johnny. As you all know, Johnny's been on loads of shows now. He's a veteran now of the bus. And you were like, "Just hang about and watch it and see what you think." And I just thought it was class. I thought it was class. And it'll not just be, I think it's important that, it's great to get to know the wee backstory about folk as well, because Johnny wasn't just talking about Celtic. He's letting you get to know a wee bit about his past life, and it was funny, wasn't it? It was brilliant banter.
Yeah, it's some good, interesting, funny stories I think people will enjoy. Ones that they took some turns that you didn't expect them to go down, but they always kind of came back to something to do with Celtic, which I thought was good. So we were able to keep the Celtic theme going whilst also just talking about some life experiences, and I think it's good to have a bit of both. And obviously, like I said, they'll just be sporadic. Well, I'll send them over when we can. If anyone wants to get in touch with me or even get in touch with Boycie, say, I would love to come down and do it. You know, you'll get a free haircut out of it. For me, I'm happy to give you a free haircut for doing it.
I'll pay the travel.
For doing
I'll
your
pay the
time.
travel. I'll pay your bus fare.
And
your train fare.
we'll just shoot the shit and see what it takes us. I mean, and like I said, it doesn't have to be fully on Celtic. Obviously, if you're going to come on from the Boycie Bus podcast, you'll all be Celtic minded. You'll be Celtic fans, unless you're Bob McBob, and and we can talk about Celtic, and we just talk about you. I'm sure you'll, like I said, everyone's got a funny story they've been on, and usually people tell their barbers some crazy stuff. Like I've heard some unbelievable stories for guys getting back. They're no longer welcome in America. Yeah, just for example, like there's just, and I'm just sitting there with my mind's blown by some of these conversations that I've had, some of these wild nights out that people have had and ended up in other countries and whatnot. Like there's just so many funny stories that can be had. I'm sure plenty of the passengers have got these stories. So if anyone does fancy coming on, you can find me on Twitter, or you can message Boycie and he'll pass the message on to me, and we can figure something out. Just another wee thing to do, especially right now when there's no Celtic on the telly just now. It was just a good opportunity to give it a go. So it's over to Boycie. I've sent it over to him. He'll put it up when he's
this week. It'll be up this week. We've got a busy week, David. This is the maddest thing. I mean, I was mentioning you earlier, and you were like, I've got to do an interview with Gregor behind the charity. I was talking about that at the top of the show. That's still to go out. We've still got to do it, to be fair. We've got Liam McGrandles on Tuesday. For me, fastly turning, the perfect combination of music and Celtic, the guy who brings it all together. The only guy ever to have You'll Never Walk Alone played on his own acoustic guitar, before a Champions League game, rather than it being the actual the Jerry and the Pacemakers playing over the PA, which, what a pat on the back or a doff of the cap that is. He's jumping on Tuesday. But yeah, we're going to have the Barber Confessions episodes going up sporadically now as well. It's just extra content, but it's not just extra content, it's unique. It's totally different. And I think folk will enjoy it. There's a lot of love for the idea of Bob coming on. He's got to talk Celtic. He says it'd be X-rated, but obviously you're the man with the razor in your hand, David. So, whatever you do with that is up to you.
I think it'd be great to have a conversation with Bob. I have a conversation with Rangers fans all the time at work, and they're never heated. There's always a good bit of banter, and there's always a bit of debate, and that could create some really interesting conversations. Whether Bob would like to come along, he's more than welcome. Anyway, everyone's welcome on the bus, and everyone's welcome in the barber chair. Everyone is welcome in the barber chair. And
the Barber Chair Confessions, that first episode will upload this week, and it will be, as I say, if anyone you want to get in touch, say, look, I'm travelling for Glasgow, the bus will pay your bus ticket or your train fare, whatever it is, we'll pay that. And if David's willing to give out half price haircuts or whatever it may be, then yeah, amazing. We'll do that. We'll definitely do it. But I think it's a brilliant idea, and it's something that's completely unique. And again, it's just different ideas that we've got right now. We've got a few more in the pipeline, and obviously this weekend we're going to be in Wishaw at G4 Claims. We're going to be in a studio where normally that's where the real veterans of this game are, David. But us Torags are going to be in there. We'll get a couple of different shows done at that point. Kaiser wants a sack, back, and crack, and he's there.
We'll sort that. We'll sort that out for you,
Kaiser. I've seen the razors David uses, and you will see them as well. That would be at your risk and your risk. Only Belly. You absolute legend. You became a YouTube member. A massive thank you to you for that. But this has been just a wee S Express. And we thought we'd get David on at the end to promote what is going to be a show getting uploaded this week. Keep your eyes peeled. If you've not hit the bell, hit the fucking bell so you get notified when it happens. It makes sense. As for the rest, you enjoy the rest of your Sunday night. As I say, there's going to be loads of content this week. The Monday Club. We're going to have Tuesday with Liam McGrandles. That's the biggie this week. We'll be doing a breakfast bar if I've got my new SIM card, because it's a long story about my phone. But I'll have hopefully my SIM card back so I can work from home on the Wednesday and do the breakfast bar before that. Thursday we'll have the TNF back this week as well. Bustalgia. Phil McGinley just never stops. The biggest legend on this bus by a country mile. Forget the fact it's got my name on it. It should be the Phil McGinley bus. He is the boy. And then before you know it, we're into the weekend and we'll be coming up with more nonsense as well. And in amongst all that, you will be seeing episode 1 of the Barber Confessions on the bus. David, look, thanks for joining us and promoting that, mate. I think everyone's going to be looking forward to all this stuff, mate. And keep up the good up the Sunday Blether. You took it a different road and everyone's absolutely loved it, mate. The feedback today in the comments, I don't know if you've seen much of it. I know you're a humble guy, but everyone's really enjoyed it. So make sure that you do. As for the rest of you, there's only one thing to play out. It's the best fucking podcast song in the world. And it's Chris Sutton speaking at the beginning. Good night.
Some of his comments about me deliberately trying to cause controversy. Well, I work in the media now. And you've got someone sitting there next to you who's an embarrassment to the media profession. He's an apologist. He's a charlatan.